They gonna have people, I have a mouth. You know what I mean? I got the MC and my butt all at the same time, but it's all right. Huh? But I don't mind.
You gotta go.
We're going to serve you. And if that's what it means, we show you that we have that kind of love for you, then we're not too, proud that we can't humble ourselves to serve each other. And that's what our people need to see more of, brothers and sisters that's willing to serve. Is that right? Speaking of a servant, I want to thank him again for coming all the way from Chi-Town, Chicago. And if you tuned into the station today, we had 3 brothers on from Chicago. Brother Donald Smith has a show on WFBR 1590 AM at 11 AM on Saturdays. And he had Brother Steve Copeland, one of our scholars who had been sick. But if you heard him today, the brother was up off his sick bed, and we want to thank the Creator for that. And then in the second hour, we heard from, again, another one of our brothers from Chicago, Fred Hampton Jr., the son of Fred Hampton Sr., one of the founding members of the original Black Panther Party. And then in the third hour, we went 3D. Don't mean we should buy no 3D TV though, right? Huh?
Man, you gotta go.
No, we went 3C on them, not 3D. And we have on Dr. Delvin Blair. So ladies and gentlemen, stand on your feet and give him a Baltimore round of applause. Dr. Delvin Blair from the Medical Center. Show him some love. Come on up, guys. Let's get this thing started, man. They don't want to hear me no more. They want to hear from you.
Let me say thank you for all of you who took time to come out this evening, your patience. I know you enjoyed the food. I know you also enjoyed buying some of the materials that were here. And as he was mentioning before, that to come out on a Saturday night when you could be partying and could be doing other things, to come here lets me know that there is consciousness in this. Can't hear me in the back. Okay, that's interesting. How about now?
Can you hear him now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, sounds like Verizon when they were first introducing the cell phones. Can you hear me now? All they were doing is making sure that wherever they went you could hear, which means wherever they went you got radiated. That's the only bad thing about that. Let me say, first of all, thank you to Brother Muhammad. It is actually a pleasure, my brother, and of course, not only are you well known, but you're well known for the right thing. Sometimes being well known is not good. Sometimes being known for the right thing is always good. I want to thank Brother Charles Woods. Brother Woods, where are you in the back? All right, if you will. I thank him also for being one of the contributors to bringing me here, and it's not the first time that he's brought me here. And I thank you again for continuing to have faith in the crazy things that I say, but in the wonderful things that are on this planet, which is now becoming crazy if you listen to the news forecasters. Let's kind of get into what is happening on the news as we now understand it to be. And you can't mention now the news without mentioning weather. And the things that are going on this planet is absolutely frightening, ridiculous. Nobody can understand it. Before we get into solutions, you must see problems. The problem right now is weather. We have tornadoes going just about everywhere and happening everywhere. We have thunderstorms everywhere. We have volcanic eruptions everywhere. We have tsunamis going on everywhere. We have what we call pollution that is now in the air, pollution that is now in the water, pollution with the foods, or what they call now genetically modified foods. And we're saying that all of these things are accidents, or they're saying, well, all of these things are acts of nature, or God brought it on. God didn't bring this on. Nature did not bring this on, unless it's an unnatural nature with some of our enemies and scientists who don't give a blank about you. We're simply finding out that what we're seeing now is a culmination, an awakening and culmination at the same time. It's ending one cycle that has gone on this planet and beginning a new cycle that is now beginning to happen on this planet. Most of you have noticed some things that are happening. First of all, the days are flying by. Time is speeding up. How many of you have noticed that? You're not imagining things. Time is speeding up. They're finding also that there seems to be longer days and nights, or you're really not sure what. You're seeing the moon out there bigger than you've seen it probably in I don't know how long.
That we can speak right into it. That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Speak right into
You're seeing the moon out there now bigger than what they call a harvest moon, because the moon is changing. We now have, well, I don't want to get the explanation. Let me just go along with these things that people are saying, why is this happening again? You're finding also that the sky seems to be dull, even though you're seeing a clear sky it seems to get very hazy and powder blue suddenly again. You're finding again also that when you begin to make some telephone calls, they'll answer twice to you again. You can't get this dial when you get it, and then you dial it again and it goes through. That's not by accident either. When you're finding now the incidence of prostate cancer is increasing, the incidence of vaginitis in women is increasing. They're not telling you why. They're saying now that all kind of asthmatic conditions, you're getting also people allergic to almost everything, walking, talking, and moving, and allergies are growing. You don't understand why that is. All of these things are not by accident. There is a common denominator for all of this, but it is so way out, so different that nobody wants to believe it. So what we're going to do is not to break down each one of these things, but to look at an overall view which will explain almost all the things that you have seen. First of all, mankind on this planet can now make weather. I'll repeat that. Mankind on this planet can now make weather. Used to be, everybody talks about the weather, nobody does anything about it. They call it weather modification. It's been going on now for 40 years, and each year they're improving on their ability to micronize and to make weather, and usually they always make weather bad. For instance, if you could make a drought, and this is a place where you had floods, this would be good.
That's right.
If you had a floodplain and you could make a drought, this would be good. If you had cold weather that was killing people, and by getting a little warmth, things could live, this would be good, and vice versa. They never send you what you think you want, they send you what they know you need. There was a report that came out from Iron Mountain about 1978. How many have heard about the report from Iron Mountain? How many haven't heard about the report from Iron Mountain? Let's talk about the report from Iron Mountain. It took 2.5 years to make. It paid $1.5 million to study the feasibility and possibility of peace on this planet. They actually studied this. The end result was that they said you cannot have peace on this planet. You must have a war every 15 to 17 years in order to control the population, the economy, and the means of production. Because of this, then, they stated that they also would suggest getting rid of 3.5 million people in the United States.
That's right.
And 5.5 billion people off the planet.
Right.
Want to hear those figures again? Get killed, whatever you want to do, of 3.5 million people here in the United States, and 5.5 billion off the planet herself. Say herself because metaphysics teaches this is a female planet. If you have diabolical, evil, whatever you want to call it, scientists to spend $1.5 million to tell you this is what they do, and then they also said in concluding chapters that to get rid of those people would be okay because most of them would be useless eaters and growing weeds, quote unquote. Useless eaters, in other words, all they do is eat, give back nothing, not worth it, fat, out of shape, sick, doing nothing else, so get rid of them anyway. And if not, use them as slaves because that's all they're good for. They're not good for anything else but taking up space on this planet. Now that is a heck of, to me, a decision for somebody to make. And especially since most of the people they called useless eaters were black, growing weeds were black. There were some white populations too. There were some brown populations too. There were some black populations too. But in the meantime, when they talk about the United States, you're talking about now so-called citizens of the United States who they felt that they had the right to weed out the population. Dr. William Teller started roughly about 20 years ago to go over some of the experiments by a man by the name of Tesla, another man by the name of Wilhelm Reich, a man by the name of Granville Woods, and all of these people were studying what they call energy fields. They've told us something now that there's an energy crisis. In fact, the oil slick down in the Gulf right now is based on the idea that there's an energy crisis. And they must find new sources for oil in order to get everything running and electricity to be made on this planet. Biggest lie, no, they tell so many lies. One of the biggest lies that they tell all the time that they got the population believing. Energy on this planet is absolutely free. It's in abundance everywhere you look. When you breathe, you're breathing in energy. When you walk, you're breathing in energy. Energy is everywhere. The ancients used to know this. You've probably seen a symbol of an ankh. I don't have, well, yes I did. No I didn't. I didn't bring it. Left it at the hotel. Doggone it. Ankh is that thing that looks like a circle with a cross. How many of you can picture in your mind an Ankh? Let me see you see. Okay, that's an Ankh. Whenever you used the Ankh in ancient time, you used it with what was called a scepter. A scepter was a long pole, like Moses' pole, like Aaron's rod, and all these kind of things. This was a long pole with a crystal on the top. It was usually made of copper. It had within it iron, copper, gold. It had crystals there, and it had wines of energy, producing energy. What happened was you would take energy into that crystal, send it through, but you had to put it into the ground, because otherwise, if you stood there and brought in that energy, it would zap you, you'd disappear, it would zap you and disintegrate you if you would.
There's an Ankh.
There's an Ankh. Oh, yeah, there you go. All right, well, you've seen the Ankh again. That's the picture there. That was one you used to hold like this, and you'd point it out. And energy would shoot out from this based on your own energy field. Much like you see in Star Wars with the sabers and stuff, this is the same kind of thing. It's based on conductivity. The conductivity in that, thank you, was used, you didn't use that without using this. And that particular thing called a scepter was something to intercept, if you would. It would take in energy that was all in there in space, amplify it, but in order for it not to kill you, you had to ground it out. This is what you call one of the original grounds. Then the energy would work through you and would discharge through the Ankh, or anything else that you had that acted like an Ankh conductor. You could use that as a pyramid shape, which does it automatically. You could use it as a thing that was in the ground, and when you had that now, you had energy being generated. Here's the big secret. The Creator did not make a planet that did not have energy to make it with. Right. So therefore, anytime you see a planet, it has its own energy source. It is these liars, it is these deceivers, it is those who would make you believe that they are gods when there is one Creator, and they're very evil to do what they do. It makes you have to think that they have to make artificial energy because the Creator was too dumb to give energy to a planet. Everybody in here has an energy field around them. You could not exist unless you did it. The conductor of that is something called a soul. And anybody that has a soul automatically pulls in energy from the universal prime Creator. Automatically. You cannot be on this planet if it did not have an energy field. What they have done is to take the high energy field and change it. Remember this now. There are three types of energies that a planet under a sun can conduct on. This is a planet under a sun, has many names. The first one is called org. Org is where we get the word original, organic, orgasm, organism. All of these things we call the first type, the first kind. That energy is directly to the mind of the universal prime Creator and thinks things into existence. Something that we'll be able to do pretty soon if we keep it its continuation. This is the thing we lost when we lost our idea that we think we're physical. And that's another thing. They told you that you are a physical being. You're not a physical being. You are a physical being in something else. Therefore, you lost out of what you were before you became physical. The second type of energy that a planet under a sun, and this is one, can utilize is called magnetism or magnetic energy. All magnetic energy has at least two different variances, a north pole and a south pole. In between those poles, there's something called a null, N-U-L-L zone. Anytime you have a magnet, you also have an emitter. There'll be a median point where they cancel each other out. That's the null. Otherwise, you use north or south. In most cases, you need the north pole. North pole makes things stable and contrite. South pole makes things expand. That's why if you have a magnet and you use the south pole, and that's just to get rid of a charney horse or crabs, you'll make things expand. Sometimes you don't want bad cells to expand, cancer cells. So this is why you have to be careful of the kind of magnets that you buy and the kind of magnets that you do. But the magnetism works with the pineal gland and with the pituitary gland up in what is called the hypothalamus. It's a bony structure which those two glands exist within. Once you begin to use this particular thing, and once you use it correctly, you can now think. And you can do wonderful things because the pineal gland makes what they call melanin. Melanin is what everybody in here that is dark, tan, or very light brown, and black generates. That's what makes you have that. Melanin is an adapter. It's an adaptogen. It can adapt to anything, anywhere under the sun. Remember the old statement, there's nothing new under the sun? Because the sun is your governor. You can't progress in a certain way. It's when you get into dark worlds that you can progress. Right now under the sun, it's all charted out. The ancients used to say things. People say things all the time, but they don't understand why they're saying it. They say it's nothing new under the sun. There isn't. Here is like a classroom. It's one of many under the sun where you learn to do or not to do, to be or not to be. The question is how you're going to be while you're in the physical body, which will determine what you're going to be when you leave the physical body. These are classrooms. These are lessons. Some people learn the hard way, but nevertheless, we will learn. And right now, those who have learned will progress. Those who haven't will soon be dead. You haven't seen death yet. And I'm not trying to brag about that. I don't want to see people die. Some people I wish weren't here. But at the same time, I don't want to see them die because you're making work for somebody else, especially if they leave here as ignorant as when they were born here. This is a classroom. And what you learn and how you demonstrate it while physical will teach you when you're angels and gods what you had to know. You had to get here to get all this stuff straight. The third force under a planet, under a sun, is called electricity. And that is the foolishness that they keep telling you is the only source of energy on this planet. And you have to burn fossil fuel, where all the animals and mammals went and died together in a clump, disintegrated, and that's why you can use it, because fossil fuel must be what they call fossil remains. Not the biggest lie. They're actually tapping into the cyclic white blood cells of this planet, the leukocytes. When you do that, you're actually draining the planet of a natural energy. That is not meant for you to do. It's supposed to be for you to utilize. So every time they have oil, this is why you're going to have oil. You haven't seen oil being messed up yet. This is remember, this is the beginning. Because they shouldn't even be doing it. It's killing the planet. They're taking the lifeblood from this planet in darkness and running it through a refinery to make it into electricity when everything around you has energy. It's everywhere. Rub your foot on a rug sometime when it's dry outside. Go touch a spot. Go touch a wall lock and you better go, hi! What do you think that was? A discharge of energy. The energy is in the air. You can feel it. They call it static electricity. Just like they tell you again that, you know, there's junk DNA in your body. There is no such thing as junk DNA. The Creator didn't make junk. It's broken helixes by which when all these things were together, you'd be gods. When they put you in these bodies, they made it break so we could not use these bodies like they should be used. All of these things are coming back to the fore. Everything that was lost is being remembered. Everything that was done is being remembered, good and bad, as the planet now seeks righteousness and justice for the injustice that's been perpetrated upon her body. A planet is a living thing. It is a mother called Mother Earth, Terrestris, Shad, Saros. This planet has had so many names. Mother Earth means that you are living on a body that is nurturing you and giving you the right to express yourself on the physical plane. She should be respected. She should not be objective. She should not have wars on her body. She should not have killing and defamation of her character. But we do it all the time. Now we wonder why there's now a retaliation coming on. Everything that is happening on this planet, including most of the history we've been taught, is a big lie. Almost everything you've learned in schools is a big lie. When you begin to decipher that lie, you begin to find out, hey, this doesn't seem right. Hey, why did they teach me this when it doesn't exist? The physical sciences that they now teach are all almost big lies. The laws that they teach you are big laws. No two things can occupy the same space at the same time. Body set in motion to the state. All of these things are ridiculous. But the only science that I now respect that they have is called quantum physics.
That's right.
Quantum physics is New Age science. It is really metaphysics.
That's right.
But instead of calling it metaphysics as it is, they call it quantum. Like a quanta of things, a quantitative thing. Yes, it's quantitative. All the things we've learned is expressed through metaphysics. They didn't know this. They now want you not to know this, and now they're going to act like they've suddenly discovered something. All the ancients knew metaphysics. That's why they had metaphysicians. They didn't have physicians.
That's right.
And they didn't have allopathic physicians. They had metaphysicians.
That's right.
People have said they mastered metaphysics. I want to meet them. Oh, I'd love to meet a master. People have called you me a master. That's the second biggest lie I ever told. I would never be able to master metaphysics, but I can study it. Right. And I am a student of metaphysics. Nobody masters metaphysics. Metaphysics is the source of all being. It is a science that teaches you the different planes of life, while we go through it and what can be gained from it. The reason why now you're going to get oils being messed up is because they never should have done it in the first place. And so now, as we are going from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, and by 2012, December 21st, we will be in the fifth dimension, not beginning it. We're in now the last days of this planet. You're going through them right now. You said, well, that's said all the time. What makes this different? You have never seen anything going on like you have on this planet before. Everything is happening wrong. Everything that is happening is crazy. Everything that is going on, you can't make sense of. You have a beautiful day out there. Here come planes from miles around, crisscrossing. X's and O's in the sky, spraying what they call chemtrails. This is no such thing as a chemtrail. No? Well, I don't know what I saw going all the way across the horizon. They call that contrails. Contrails is a little bit of iced up particles of ice above 13,000 feet, trailing behind the fuselage of a plane, and because it's so cold, it forms ice. 12 feet behind. What is this thing going from horizon to horizon? Those are full of titanium, barium, aluminum, non-human T cells, manure, anything else they wish to spray on you every day, because there's no government telling them not to do it. Now, if they really want to do something from the government, why don't they tell those planes to stop spraying things? That's right. Why don't they tell you, instead of denying it, those planes are now spraying titanium, barium, aluminum, so you can make weather? That's right. Because what they do is to bounce a certain signal, which is called scalar technology. They bounce it off of those things, and now you get a vibrational wave or a standing shock wave. That way you can begin to make weather. That way, when you see lightning but no thunder, you know that was not naturally cumulus clouds. That's scalar technology. They just made weather on you. When you begin to see weather and a front staying in one spot, doesn't move on. Nature always moves on with the jet stream. Because of magnetism, unlike poles repel, like poles attract. There's always an attraction. What you're seeing there is man-made foolishness. Way back in the wind day, they had House and Senate bills. Look them up. That thought about weather modification, how they could use it. The Secretary of Defense even talked about way back when that they were going to do this and what it might be, and that any nation that masters this, World War III has already started. That's right. It's a weather wars, and what you're suffering now is a result of weather wars. They call it weather modification. This is a weather war. They can make all kinds of things. There was a system by the name of HAARP, which stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Center. This was an array up in Gacona, Alaska, 36 towers. Each of these towers could broadcast billions of watts of electricity into the air. Once this was done, you had a standing column, just like a front, that would stop the jet stream, a moving air current, hit up against it, come back around and hit up against it, and pretty soon you had turbulence. If it was widespread turbulence, you had a hurricane. If it was short spread, you had a tornado. And another thing that's very interesting too, they say that we went through almost 100 hurricanes last year. Biggest lie ever told. Well, it's how many lies? Another biggest lie ever told. In the Atlantic Ocean, when it happens, it's called a hurricane. In the Pacific Ocean, when it's happened, it's called a typhoon. That's right. So it makes you think that it's a typhoon over there and it's a hurricane over there. It's the same thing. That's another way of deceiving you as to how much turbulence is going on in this planet. They're all the same thing. Whirling bodies of energy that are now being used to against you and against people and against places and against things. Russia has, let's go to Europe first. Europe has something called ISACAT, European Scalar Technology. It is the same thing as HAARP, only they're using it over in Alaska, or they're using it over there in Europe. Russia has the best one. Theirs is shaped like a pyramid. It's called ELAHA, Electrified Aerial Disturbances. I couldn't read Russian, so I had to get it wrong. It's like aerial disturbances made by electrification. They were smart. They made theirs like a pyramid where everybody else had rectangular areas. Pyramids is the best shape on this planet to pull in third force energy. That's why they built the pyramids. They are generators of Borg energy. Or energy is free energy. That's why they won't tell you about pyramid power, because you build some pyramids, you can start putting down energy and you don't have to pay them for it. Okay? So therefore, don't make anything like a pyramid. They could never, what's a pyramid? Oh, the daddies of the kings were there. Never buried anybody in a pyramid. Pyramids are not built as buried, they're generators. In fact, it'll help keep you alive if you can get near one. When it's working and not working in a negative force, as they call that magnetic attraction. When we learn things here, we must understand some basic facts. Let's get what I call truth. First of all, this planet is over 4.5 billion years old. I'll repeat that figure. 4.5 billion years old. You know about a new planet. How old is the planet? Older than 50,000 people living 50,000 years multiplied by 50,000 times. 4.5 billion years old. The moon is 5.6 billion years old. 5.6 billion years old. So forget the moon being brought out of the Gulf of Mexico and sparking it. How can you have something that came from you that's older than you? Another big lie that they're telling. Why are they going back to the moon? Because they got to get off the planet. Why are they going to Phobos, one of the moons of Mars? Because they don't want them on the moon. And they can't land on Mars, which is a habit about black people living inside of it. So they can't go there either. Where are they going to Phobos? Because it's an orbiting satellite that was put up there to balance the moon when Maldek and Malona, the 13th planet, where we get trichodecaphobia, was destroyed. And many of the Martians there had to go, well, at any rate, so I'm just telling you, why are they going to Phobos? Because they can't stay here any longer. Their time is up on this planet. They know this, but they'll wreck the whole planet and you with it if they could, because they envy you. One of the most envied thing on this planet is melanin. Why do you think you had the Atlanta child murders? Why do you think you had, well, I didn't want to mention that either, it's going to start get you in trouble. Melanin is an adaptogen. It's ubiquitous. What do I mean by that? It adapts to almost anything in physical creation. If you have melanin, you don't need to take shots when you travel. But normal things, melanin adapts to. Anything that the Creator has made is from Creator, it's from the first cause, you can adapt to until you take a drug or something synthetic. The darker you are, the better your grade of melanin, and the more you can adapt to anything on this planet and any planet under a sun. Did you hear me? How many didn't hear me? Good, you all heard me. Now, when you start doing things that are synthetic, you're going against your very nature of the atoms that make you up, which are made of melanin. Okay? When you take an allopathic anything that is pharmaceutical grade and synthetic, you're killing yourself. And the darker you are, that's why when dark people drink alcohol, they act absolutely insane. When brown people take alcohol, they act almost insane. And the more you have melanin, you cannot drink alcohol. But that does not include alcohol, that includes anything that is a drug. All these things are synthetic against your very nature. And what happens is, the more you take these synthetic things, the more your pineal gland begins to atrophy or calcify. This is a danger of continuing to use all those drugs that you think you must have. And after a while, you're going to be drug dependent because your pineal gland will not be working and you're on your way to death. You're now a synthetic person and you have to live on synthetic things. That's why when you start with dialysis, now they got whole rooms of people wired up, watching TV to do what the kidney should have done, and you keep going to them asking for more help. I don't understand it. Sometimes I really think you guys just don't understand. We have been so miseducated we don't understand a gift from the gods, and we're now praying for Jesus and God to give us some more gifts. Why? So we can give it away. Why? So we act like we don't need it. Why give you a gift when you continue to misuse the gift you are already given, looking for more gifts from God? Make your own gifts. And when you do make your gifts, you call them kids. Oh, I just had a kid the other day. I got 4 kids. I got 80 kids. Oh, wow, you're good. Kids are goats. Sacrifices to the goat god Baphomet. And until you understand that, you're born to sacrifice to the goat god, and then you take it to hospitals, which give them 7 shots, and you lost your child in the hospital before you brought him home. You didn't hear that, did you? You have children. Children. And they didn't come from kindergarten, where goats used to go. They came from schools of life. And they came to you to teach you or to learn from you. And the first thing you do is get them shot, so they got to fight for their life from the very day that they're conceived to the very day that they give birth, because you don't understand who you are. You don't understand what this is, and you don't understand the nemesis that wears a white coat, smiles at you with a stethoscope and says, you need a shot. I saw a thing that just drove me. I have not been able to throw it out of my mind. I've seen some wonderful things. But this thing, I was so upset by this thing. I didn't know whether to laugh. I didn't know whether to cry. I just went over there. I leaned against it. Let me tell you, I got to share this with you. I was in the Jewel food store. I guess it was about a year and a half ago. And people were lined up to get shots. They were given free shots, and if you didn't get it then, it was going to cost you $5 the next month. So everybody was lined up to get the shots. This was Seniors Day. So there were two seniors. One woman looked like she was about 80. The other woman looked like she was about 78. But you could tell that they had a few years on them, and they were going to get the shots. I shook my head. I said, oh my God. Why are these women who are still able to walk, talk, and stand doing it? Well, they were in line. And one woman had a card, I guess, so she was standing in line for so long, she kind of moved the cart there, and she wanted to go down the aisle, since they were waiting anywhere, to get something else to put in the cart. She went down there, and then she came back, and she took her place in line where she was before in front of this other woman. Now this one was 80 years old, the one that left was about 78 years old. That woman took his head, boom, kicked her in the shin. I looked, I said, no, Creator, I did not see that. I didn't know whether to laugh, I didn't know whether to die, I didn't know whether to cry, I didn't know what to do. I just looked at it. Somebody told me, they don't know what's wrong with me. First of all, they should have been in that line in the first place. Secondly, the Creator gave them privilege to let them spend a little bit of time before they got killed. Okay? This woman was so anxious to get her shot, she kicked the other woman in the shin when she shouldn't have done it in the first. I just looked and I said, where do you begin? I was going to shop, I walked out to my car, sit in my car, and said, where? I can never forget that. I don't even know how to explain that. Here you got a reprieve and you kick somebody so you can die first. Woo! That's intelligence. And those were elders. Just because you grow old doesn't mean you go with wisdom. Right. They got some dumb elders out here. They ought to be re-educated, believe me. Sorry about that, elders. But I'm an elder. Yes, you also already too. Okay. All right. Let me get into another portion of this thing too. I want to throw out something just a little bit too as a side, because we're now having what we call May Day. May Day is the 1st of May. And I want to give you just a brief background on that one. One, that you will hear in European society, and another which brings in cross societies and all good. May Day, the word May Day is something that is used as usually a means of fear or distress signals along that line again. That's right. May Day was made up, see if I had this, I was not, I'm going to share because I think I remember it again. There was a guy named Mockingbird, no, Mockinger, what is this thing? Yeah, that was it. I did patch it over there again. Yeah, Mocking is his name. Frederick Stanley Mocking. Frederick Stanley Mocking in 1923 was like an airport supervisor between two big countries, between France and England. And they wanted him to come up with something to add to a distress signal. Since the airports, some of the planes would begin to crash, they wanted a way to interrupt normal broadcast and get the attention of the pilots and something like this again. So he said, you make up a word and we'll use it both in the both in the airport in France and in the airport in England. The one in England was called Croydon, and the one in France was called Le Bourgeois. These were two airports there. So he started trying to figure out something, and then since he was bilingual, he found out that la vigne ou d'or, of course they don't use consonants in French, meant help me or I need help. So the word Bordeaux got translated again into Bordeaux, and then later on became New Bordeaux May Day. That's exactly where it started from. It became a universal distress signal for something that was going wrong, and that's how the origin was, started back in 1923. Now, later on, mocking became a word that they called a parrot that could talk. They called it a mockingbird. That's right. Okay? And this is how they got that, because you could emulate human speech. This is the way that one got carried away on too. Now, Also part of May Day was a habitual pattern that had happened for centuries. It was in worship of the god Isis, and later on in beginning what they call the fertility rites. Oh well, I'll get it later on. The fertility rites of what they call the goddess Ishtar, from which we get our word Ishtar. See, they didn't tell you about all that. I'm not going to go too far with that because you're going to church tomorrow. Nevertheless, let's kind of deal with this a little bit. They had what was called the rites of spring. The rites of spring, like we're going through now, is when the flowers begin to bloom and the forest and woods were full of flowers. So the women usually would go out and pick the flowers. They would put them in their hair, they would make garlands around them, and it was a festive time. Sometimes they'd bring it back to their homes, and this is what was called the flower garden show, or the flowers. Now, what later on happened, under the rites of fertility, the god Ishtar, it was a time when supposedly babies would best be made. And women became very funetile, became very populous, if you would, and could give birth much easier. So, what happened in many cases, when they went out into these forests, they had their lovers. The lovers would meet them out there, and they had sex out in the forest, okay? During the daytime, this was okay. At night, it got kind of rough. So now they were conceiving under moonlight and under daylight, or what they call sunlight. This is why the first Sunday in May is called Mother's Day. Because mothers, children and women became mothers during that time, and so it was a time of the rites of spring. That's what Mother's Day started from. But they don't tell you about the second side of that, was what was called the fecundae, or fecundity, or the ability to conceive. It was also a worship and ascent to the goddess Ishtar when the hymen of a woman was broken, and again the vaginal entrance was open, which could give birth in the birth canal. And the first sacrifice, or the first conception under a sun, was given to the goddess Ishtar. And that first son, or son of the sun, was therefore one that was most honored. All of these things were rites that had gone on long before the Europeans took them over, but we've forgotten the understanding of what was there. What they then began to carry on was also what is called the dance of the maypole. May Day also consists of a pole that was stuck in the ground, or a stick that was stuck in the ground, or a stump of a tree that was in the forest where they had made love and so, and later on began to be made a phalanx symbol, or phalanx if you would symbol. It was a male penis that was garnered there. And they would throw flowers and flowers around the penis. The last one to throw the last bouquet was supposed to be the first one to become pregnant, or would give birth to a child. This is where now they call also May Day, and the rites of Spring Day, or Fecund Day. All of these things were done when the Moors had come into Europe and had conceived many children there. Before this time, it had always been a rite of passage for the rite of passage of a soul. But once the Moors came there again, they always resembled the firstborn to a Moor was honored, because at that time in what they call Scandinavia and Khazaria, from the Khazars and stuff, when the Moors came in the 7th century and the 11th century into the area they now call Europe, which was not called Europe at that time, it was to rescue a princess. You hear about the face that launched 1,000 ship, Paris, and so like this? No. That was about the Princess Europa, which gets the whole name of Europe. A black princess that was taken out of Kemet, and then a whole army of Moors came over to rescue her and to make raids on these infidels who they said had the audacity as a sovereign state to come and take one of their best queens. And this is how the whole thing got started. What now was called Italy, and so was called Sicily. That's right. And before that, Etrusca. Over in Greece, it was called Ionia. They had Ionians. All of this was a land which had been covered with blacks, but later on had retreated when the land became more sterile. All these rites and things you'll never tell you the truth about, because it leads back to the heritage of black people on this planet. One that is so old that they've forgotten how much has happened, and one that has been recently usurped, so we now follow a history that is his story, made up by his historians, and not by your historians or my historians. Mine became a misstory. Okay? Yours is a misstory. In 1903, it was, who is this guy? John David Rockefeller, Sir Henry Breasted, and Sir Finders Petrie founded the University of Chicago. There they changed all the things that were good and changed them to bad. And they taught with Cambridge and Dartmouth, so for Ivy Leagues, all the things that had been taught, they took and put in the history books, his story books, and changed it and put that down into professors' libraries, underground caves. And they put a whole new set of publications, give you a whole false history, and you thought if you went to the University of Chicago, you were smart. Oh yeah. But they knew you'd never get tenure, you never get sabbaticals, you never get any money if you didn't learn to tell this new thing that John David Rockefeller said you must now teach. They took the real history, gave you a false history, but you went to the University of Chicago. When you graduated, you were now a scholar. Oh yeah, you had scholarship. You didn't know anything, but you knew how to repeat lies better than anybody else. And black people repeat things that talk better than anybody else. Then they told people who talked about the real story, oh, they're fools. They don't get sabbaticals. They don't have a university sheepskin. You didn't take the sheepskin and write on it. You used to have parchment up here and hip. No, they had to take that away and give it something. I don't know the story. I get on these tangents. You have to forgive me. Once we have to understand something, there is nothing new under a sun. And if you can go through enough sunships to understand it, then you can begin to be born on suns. Not only are you sons of the sun, but the moons around it become daughters of the moon, like Isis. Adon was all the different names that they changed again. And let me say this to you too. So much I want to say it. I feel like I'm pressed for time, even though I'm not.
Take your time, man.
There's so much. You try to share too much, it gets it's a overburden. They have never stopped going to the moon. Long before Apollo 15, and long after Apollo 20, and they're still going to the moon.
That's right.
They went to the moon so much that the people on the moon told them they ain't coming back anymore. Stop coming here. Now they're talking about going to the moon. It's going to take, what, a spaceship, 8 months to get to the moon, or something like this again. No, none of that. There's a movie out now. It's not a movie you go to the show and see. It's one you can get. We do sell it also. It's called about the sister on the moon. It consists of a 1.5 billion year old spaceship which they found on the moon, driven by a black woman. Huh? A 1.5 billion year old, 3/4 of a mile spaceship driven by a black woman. Now, Blair, I was with you, but you should have said that when you were ready to go. Now I'm ready to go. Don't leave yet. It's just beginning. That says, if it's true, a lot of things. First of all, that the moon was around here 1.5 billion years ago, at least. That there were spaceships that could go to the moon, and there were black people on the moon, at least one was a female.
That's right.
Now, they have found heads of robots and androids that look Negroid on the moon. They have found in the United States, in Africa, the same kind of a head of a black woman like you see on Mars. If you go up 18 miles and you will photograph Kemet, and you will get pictures that the meteorologists, astrophysicists, and astronomers will let you have, you see that same carving in that area running from about Zambia up to, I guess it would be maybe, coastal Madagascar, probably out Angola. It's a big drawing, of a big carving of a Negroid-looking woman. You can tell because there's dreads that this woman has, and they're everywhere. There was a picture, bring me back to, I was there on the moon there too, if you will, the picture. I'm going to go on this with you. There was an invasion of Grenada some time ago.
That's right.
That's where they went to rescue a school mom and 28 children or something that, they needed rescuing because these, I don't know, I guess the natives there were unfriendly. So they had to go rescue them suddenly. The people want to know, what are you rescuing this from? What are they doing? These were some missionaries that were there that were accepted. But what they had found was this. There was a printing shop there. and it was a postage stamp that was made on Grenada. There was two of them. One was called the Lady of the Islands, the other was called Our Lady of, not Chesterhova, other Isles or something like that. But anyway, the one of the Lady on the Island was of a Negroid-looking woman with dreads. Okay? That stamp was printed there. I had the privilege of seeing an assistant, well, I'm not even going to mention this guy's name. Anyway, he was an assistant to a person who was a well-known person again, who supposedly deals in metaphysics and also deals with the two things about what's on Mars. Okay? When he took an overlay of this Lady of the Islands and put it on the face of Mars, she sprung alive. You can see what it was. It was a black woman with dreads. They always give you an angular shot. That postage stamp would have made people aware that there not only must have been Martians up there that were Negroid, but they were so big that they made a 5-mile by 15-mile long statue up there dedicated to a black woman. That's why they didn't want you to see the stamp. That's why they invented to destroy that printing press, to destroy those stamps, so you couldn't see for yourself.
That's right.
Now you say, why would they go that far out? They've gone further than that to try to tell you who you're not. You really don't know who you are. And anybody else that thinks they got to go to a star when they already are stars anyway. They don't even understand who they were. Mars at one time was called Nassar, many other names. I don't want to get too far ahead of one before I go to another, but I have to tell you how this moon came about that we have, so I got to tell you the story of triskaidekaphobia. Triskaidekaphobia is the fear of the number 13.
That's right.
Okay? There's a reason why people fear the number 13. It's from the destroyed 13th planet, which means there had one time been, and still are, 12 planets in this system. We don't even know how many planets we have around this sun.
That's right.
Because some are on different grades of vibrational rates. Maldek and its moon Malona, centuries ago, blew themselves up. They had a battle with those that lived on the moon and those that lived on Maldek. Many of the shaman and stuff knew that this was going to happen, and especially on the planets that were very spiritual, if you would. Mars was being one. The Martians knew that this battle was inevitable. They did everything they could, along with people from Sirius and other places, to try and stop these fools from killing themselves. When they saw that they couldn't, and understanding that you cannot send a soul, they said, well, we'll just have to prepare for it. It's inevitable. So toward that inevitability, they launched what they called 2 ships around Mars. One was called Phobos. The other was called, what? Deimos. I want to see if you knew it. All right. One, Phobos means panic. Deimos means fear. These things were put up grade and retrograde in eccentric orbits to stabilize Mars, because they knew there was going to be a time when that planet, those people would probably kill themselves. When that did happen, a top of Mars was sheared off, and Mars itself rocked and rolled. Another planet was almost destroyed too, was sent out of orbit, and all the inner planets then had rains that came from rains that came from Maldek and Malona. There was a lot of water on Malona. There was some water on Maldek. One of the floods that you hear of Noah, which was called the Phoenician, is one of the floods that came from that exploded planet. And the salt water that came here was not natural to this planet. Creatures that live in the salt water came from other planets. That's why they're so vicious in the meantime. This planet had no salt water. It had fresh water. So now, when that happened and this rain of all this Maldekian water came, we had a life form that came here that was never supposed to be here in the first place. But now it lived in salt water. Mars then put up these 2 reverse satellites to stop Mars from being shunted out of orbit too, and to give Mars what they call balance. The Martians, in many cases, some left, thinking that it might not be worth it staying here. Some came here, and the other ones had to go inside the planet to live. And now you'll find in this planetary system, intelligent life form does not live on the surface, it lives inside of the planet. Huh?
Come on, y'all.
Huh?
Come on.
Now we're living on the surface.
Yeah.
But we are a very intelligent life form here, aren't we? Brown, white. We forgot about the blue ones. They kind of went inside. All through the green ones. But now we can't get along white, black, brown, and yellow. And when you start bringing back those speckled ones and the green ones, are doing it. What are we going to do then? Huh? They went inside. And as the Bible speaks about, and the Papua speaks about, and the Vedas speak about, and the Upanishads speak about, and there were giants in the earth. And they begot, and they begun, and they begin. And they talk about all of that. That's the giants that came from Lyra, one of the ones that was trying to stop the Maldecans from fighting. And then after they got caught up, the only planet that could give them habitat was here. And the giants came here too. We have got so much mess on this planet. We're like the island of Dr. Moreau of boats, where you use that where the mad scientist went there and crossed everything that he could. Well, everything here is so crossed up, it's not even worth talking about. You've got stuff here that nobody else has. In fact, most planets have one race. A few may have quarantined themselves to having pets. We not only got pets, we got all races, we got all sizes, we got all sexes. And of course now the sexual thing has gotten out of hand and you don't know one man from a woman. Oh, you know. What do they call it now? Homosexuality? All right. Well, you get homosexuality, you never reproduce your kind. Right? Well, I say wrong. I heard some feelings in here, huh? I hope not. Either way, we already were androgynous at one time. This is why people want to know how they got started in the first place, because the original race here didn't have a male or female sex. It had both. And this is what we have lost out. And sometimes there's dermoid cysts which women make at certain times in the month when they have sex. Is born already what they call parthenogenesis. That's what the Parthenon was built for. We don't even know what parthenogenesis is. We still talk about the battle of the sexes. Right. It's got kind of nice now because men and women have to come together now to procreate. By the time they don't want to reproduce, and they go wherever they want. All of this are vestiges of misused consciousness and misunderstood history. Right. Once you begin to lose the Creator's consciousness and begin to talk of a person who is an alien or an extraterrestrial to teach you consciousness, you're going to lose your soul. Many of us already have lost our souls. We say, that's a lost soul. Sure is. And we got more souls being lost every day as we breathe this messed up air, eat this messed up genetically modified food. Right. Some of you get a wing dinner, 6-wing dinner, you think you have 3 chickens. You got one messed up chicken that you're eating, and when they get to you, it's messing you up, messing up your genes. This is why when you eat genetically modified food, you get genetically modified food, because it's not food. Food is something that gives you life. To process that, it takes your life. Right. That's why at Thanksgiving you get to eat, you got to go sleep because you took all your energy. If it was food, you should have had more energy, didn't you? Shouldn't you? Well, if eating you get nothing. Right. Where did I begin? Where did I begin? Let's go back to the moon. Just like they're going back to the moon again. Let me say another. I can't do it yet. I got to go. They're going to spend your money to get back to the moon, which they never left, which through black ops, which everything advanced they hide from you anyway. They're not only on the moon, on Mars already, on Venus, everything. They are now having United States service people fighting on other planets. Did you know that? Come on, Doc. Everything almost that you learn here is a lie. And it gets so much that when you hear the truth, it sounds like a lie. That's right. Simply because they don't tell you what's really happening. They don't tell you what's happening in space. They don't even tell you what's happening in the space between your ears. Because there's a movie out called Psychiatry, The Industry of Death. How many have had the displeasure of seeing that movie? A few of you. Once you see that, you'll never respect a psychiatrist or a psychologist again. And many of you are going there to learn how to be a good psychologist. That movie tears that whole industry apart and takes the head of the psychiatric institute, puts him on a hot seat, and this man babbles around and says nothing for 5 minutes because he knows if he lies, he'll go to jail. That's right. We don't even understand. Then they say you're ADD, attention deficit disorder, and they give you some shots. And if you have melanin when they give you the shots, you are going to go to hell. Because you're taking in a thing that's against your very nature. And they tell you it's to get you straight. It's to get you unstraight, put you in a straight jacket. We have gotten so much misinformation, so trusting in so many people that we should not even trust with with a 100-mile pole, that we don't know where to begin to get ourselves straight. Well, the planet is now going to do that for you. You won't have to worry about it any longer. You had your chance. You will now vibrate faster, and remember, or you will lose your soul and you will be dead. In the next year and a half, you have not seen death. You're going to see death. You're going to see death in natural causes, unnatural causes, and by every way you can think of. No, I do not feel good bringing this news. Now watch my words and see what they say, and then watch what you're going to hear in history every day. This planet is moving to a higher dimension of consciousness. It is moving from kindergarten to graduate school, and it's going to be done in the next 2 years. In fact, 2012 will mean you will now be on a fifth dimensional planet operating in the fifth dimension. You're in the time of change now. You are in your 2012 now. Just to digress on that a little bit, you don't even know what time it is. Because I don't know what time it is. Because they don't know what time it is. And if you go back in history and the chronology of our months and years, and I'll kind of share that with you. I wasn't even going to go there. Let's go there too.
Let's go there.
The year 45 BC has been known as the year of confusion. It was the pontiffs, from which we get pontifical mass, that was supposed to keep up with time for the Roman and the Holy Roman Empire. They got so busy fighting everybody as Rome disbanded and fighting battles, they forgot. And so in 45 BC, they finally met to figure out what time it must be. And between that time, Pope Gregory had come and put in the month of, of February. Julius Caesar had come and put in January. Before that time, there was no January. There was no February. If you were born then, you don't exist. If you are a January, if you're in Aquarius, or if you're in, what do they call it, Capricorn, you don't exist. Because they had no January and February, so it added in 45 BC in the Roman Empire. Okay? They had 30-day months. They had to change that. That's why they leap year, they have to balance every 4 years. Because they good time all messed up. You don't know what time it is. They don't know what time it is. They dropped 500 days in the year 45 BC because the pontiffs had not come up with time, so they threw that way so we begin again. So you think you are a certain age, you think you were born in a certain month, you don't exist. Because the chronology of this place was called Encalia, then later on called Gautama, then later on called America after America Vespucius, the map maker. You don't know what time it is. If you're born in January and February, you don't even exist anymore. So, I'm just saying, we could have 2012 tomorrow. It could be that time already. There's no way of really knowing what they were talking about unless you go back to the Mayans, who supposedly kept track all the time. Another biggest lie ever told. Now it makes them out, now it makes Mayans mad. The Mayans, as they called themselves, and Mayans, as I was taught was the correct pronunciation, were a race that was very agronomistic, and they did one thing well, kill. As the Aztecs before them did one thing well, kill. Now Blair, before you get the Aztec and the Mayans coming and quartering me, let me explain why I say that. They worship the gods, and the gods that they worship, Quetzalcoatl, Ixtioten, and all the rest of them, were serpent people. And the serpent people landed in spaceships and took them up and ate them up, and to try and stop them from doing that, they would make sacrifices thinking they could please the gods. And you can't please a serpent because by their very nature, they love to eat you. This battle has been going on for so long, but how did Dr. King say? How long? Not long. Not much longer. It's coming to an end.
That's right.
And the end is the beginning.
That's right.
Because Earth will be going to the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension used to be Earth's fifth heaven, as there are 7 heavens.
That's right.
That's where you hear the term seventh heaven.
That's right.
Earth is hell. The word hell from heaven to cover. Everything here that's worthwhile is covered up. We are in hell. You are in hell. You don't have to die to go to hell. You were born into hell. Earth is hell because everything here exists here and it's to hold you back from where you should be going. The reason why there will be heaven on earth is because as earth goes to the fifth dimension, which used to be its heaven, you'll have now the ability to have heaven while still in a physical body, because you'll be fifth dimensional creatures, and that's why your vibrations must now clean up. That's why you've got to clean up and fast. That's why you're getting pushed every day to get things straight, because other than that, you will not be able to stay physical on this planet. You'll be able to live if you have a soul, but will not be in what we call the new dimension. We're going to have to take a break. We come back, we'll get into the new dimensions, some of the reasons why these things are happening, some of the weapons that are going on, and some of the things that you can do to not only get to the fifth dimension, but become the angels that you're supposed to be, the gods that you all are. And believe me, with the new consciousness, which we need so severely, I wish it would happen tomorrow. I thank you for the first time on the first grade.
All right, let's give Dr. Blair a round of applause.